I don't want to set the world on fire.
Hi everyone, this is Pilate Irwin. Thanks so much for coming back to my channel. I'm going to record another Car Confessional today. This one will probably be short and sweet, if I'm going to be honest. But I still think it's important to talk about. So what I want to talk about today are two of my favorite people on Earth. Because I really think that they might save Western civilization, almost single-handedly. And it's not that I don't love everyone else in the kind of free speech slash libertarian slash, I guess, conservative movement. But who I want to focus on is Milo Yiannopoulos and Jordan Peterson. And the reason why I want to focus on those two is because I think that they are doing the most, culturally speaking, to save Western civilization from its suicidal kind of tendencies or the suicidal path that we had been on. So let's talk about Milo first. And Milo, if you ever watch this, I love you, you're awesome. Thank you so much for having the courage and the balls to do what you do every day. Anyone who says that you're over the top does not get it. And, you know, thanks for watching this if you ever do see this Milo. But the reason why Milo is so important is because he is the court jester of our time. And for those of you who don't know, the court jester in, you know, the Middle Ages or whatever, served the role of entertaining the king, right? So he would kind of make jokes and entertain and all of that. But the great thing about the jester was that he could tell the truth, right? He was the one who could roast the king. If anyone could poke fun at the king being fat, it was the jester, right? So the jester, in some ways too, kind of served as, not a confidant, I guess, but more of like a quasi-advisory role to the king, in that, you know, given that the jester was telling the truth and could do it with humor, you know, the king kind of might actually take some of what the jester said to heart, because it did have truth to it. And for decades, all of our jesters have been silenced. So many comedians have kind of gone down this politically correct rabbit hole and don't make jokes about black people anymore, don't make jokes about, you know, anyone who's Muslim anymore. They don't, I mean, they just don't make jokes about any kind of minority group anymore. And the ones who still are willing to kind of take more courage with their jokes, like for example, Jerry Seinfeld, like people would say that he is not that controversial, but you know, if you actually watch Seinfeld, a lot of the stuff that's in those shows today, I bet a lot of writers and producers would not have the courage to put into a TV show now if they were making it. For example, there's a whole episode where a journalist from like NYU or something thinks that Jerry and George are gay because of a joke that Elaine made that the journalist eavesdrops on, right? And the whole idea is that like they do a lot of things that kind of make it seem like they're gay, and she gets more and more convinced of it just interacting with Jerry and George. But then at the end, you know, it all comes out that they're not gay, and she ends up kind of kissing Jerry or whatever, and they have a little fling or whatever. But they have this whole thing about like, not that there's anything wrong with that, you know, it's like, we're not gay! Not that there's anything wrong with that. Like, there's a whole bit about it. But I mentioned this episode because there's no way that that episode could be made today. I mean, seriously, people would be outraged at the jokes about gay people. They would say that it was homophobic, that it was insensitive, that it was triggering, yada, yada, yada. And so, for me, personally, I don't think Jerry Seinfeld is even, like, offensive at all. Like, it's hard for me to imagine being offended by Jerry Seinfeld, but so many people are these days. And even to the extent that he is not censoring his comedy, because he doesn't, he keeps his comedy the same, he has stopped going to college campuses, just like Chris Rock and just like some of these other comedians. And a lot of people want to say, oh, like, look at these comedians taking a stand against the students and, like, not performing anymore. But to me, this is another version of silencing, just because, you know, they're not willing to play to hostile crowds like the ones that are, you know, at college campuses because they're so triggered and like sheltered and all that. That doesn't mean that that's not a version of being silenced. You know, Jerry Seinfeld now has limited so much of the population that could be hearing his comedy and could be hearing his message. And that's just all the more indication to me that our jesters have been silenced. And when the court jester is silenced, or, you know, as stuff is starting to happen in the UK, where jokes, however distasteful they may be, like what Count Dankula made, to the extent that that is actually criminally punishable in the United Kingdom, I mean, that's literally saying that jesters are going to be thrown in prison. And when the jester is thrown in prison, you know that society is in a very, very dark place. Because that means that the only person who could tell the king a joke with a laugh and the truth is now, you know, totally silenced. So where is the laughter? Where is the truth? It's jailed, it's closed up. So that is why Milo is so incredibly important. And Milo, you know, I don't even agree with Milo on everything. I would say I agree with Milo on about 65% of what he actually wants and believes. You know, I'm a Catholic too, so we've got that, like, Catholics are always right, I stand by that. And I also, you know, he's got a lot of libertarian leanings. Like, he wants to say he's a Republican, but he's more libertarian than he thinks, especially for how often he shits on libertarians. But I'm glad that he shits on us, because everyone needs to be roasted, right? And if it takes, like, gay, Jewish, you know, British, married to a black man, guy who's dressed in, you know, flamboyant Harlequin outfits and bleaches his hair and wears sparkles, and, you know, if that's what it takes for us to have comedy and truth out there again, then I say yes. I say fuck yeah. Thank you, Milo, for smashing political correctness and, frankly, just making telling the truth cool again. Because for so long, telling the truth was quote-unquote not cool. And now, basically lying to yourself, lying about biology, lying about reality, you know, lying about what people really want, what they don't want. I mean, people just lie to themselves all the time about our society, lying to themselves about immigration, lying to themselves about everything. And if Milo is what brings truth back, then fuck yes. You know, we need him. We need Milo. And for everyone who says in the libertarian movement and in the conservative movement that he needs to tone it down, or he needs to, like, be less offensive somehow, like, y'all do not understand the point of Milo. The purpose of Milo is not for all of his words to be taken literally. People should take him seriously, but not literally, right? Because you don't take the jester literally, you take him seriously. However, without the jester, we can't have laughter, we can't have truth. What are we supposed to do? We need him. And yeah, he's a little weird. He's kind of a strange package. But thank God for fucking Milo. Because for the first time since, like, the 80s, you know, people are really finally more willing to tell the truth about things. I really don't think that our movement, so to speak, would be as powerful as it is and as expansive as it is without Milo. Milo was willing to tell all of these crazy leftist nut jobs to go fuck themselves. And that's exactly what we needed. We needed the first person to stick their head out and say, y'all are fucking crazy, I'm out. I'll stop ranting and raving about Milo. So now let's talk about Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson, I have lovingly titled The Preacher for this video, and I know that he might not refer to himself that way, but it really is the role that he's serving in our current society. And it's not necessarily that he's espousing, you know, the Bible in a way that a typical preacher would, but he certainly is preaching a morality and a way of life and an understanding of the biblical stories and of Judeo-Christian society that is revitalizing morality and ethics in the West. And not only is he revitalizing our understanding of Judeo-Christian culture, but he's invigorating and bringing back to life so many individuals that had been, like, dormant, you know, passive sheep. And so many of us in the libertarian movement have been hoping for some kind of massive red pill to wake everybody up, because many libertarians will know this quote that it's like, you know, people go crazy in groups but only come back to sanity one by one. And I do think that's true. You know, people kind of have these massive delusions and hysterias, as we see currently with, like, the Me Too movement and as we saw throughout history with stuff like the witch hunts, you know, people kind of can lose their shit altogether. Hysterias happen, and they will happen going forward, but the key is to have individuals who are strong enough to see through the hysteria and who can help lead other individuals back one by one. And what's so incredible about YouTube is that YouTube has facilitated the process by which Jordan Peterson has been able to lead an entire mass of people one by one, right? Like millions of people can see his videos and still come to this path of understanding and to this path of enlightenment one by one. How incredible is that? So there's really two things there with Jordan Peterson, and I do want to delve into both of them at least briefly. So in terms of the revitalizing Judeo-Christian society, this is a huge deal because it was what was lacking in our culture that I think has really led to the decay of our society. It's the reason why our culture has been committing suicide, right? I mean, Pat Buchanan's great book, The Death of the West, that's his main thesis, is that the West is committing suicide, and I agree with that thesis, but I don't agree that it has to go that way. You know, just because someone is standing on top of a building about to jump doesn't mean that they can't be convinced off, and I do think that Western civilization can be convinced off, maybe not without some casualties. But what Jordan B. Peterson has done is cause even the most fervent atheists to reconsider the morality that is preached in the Bible. Because the Bible isn't just about believing in some spaghetti monster in the sky, as many atheists would believe. It's about a deep psychological understanding of the history of humankind and the traditions and archetypes that have helped us get through the tragedy of our existence. So Jordan Peterson has not only helped atheists, you know, kind of come to understand where the underlying morality of our civilization is, but in doing so, he has really revitalized sort of our foundational documents of our Western countries, right? Because the Constitution is based on Judeo-Christian values. You know, all of these leftists want to talk about their rights, but they want to destroy, you know, the underpinnings of our civilization. And it's like, where do you think those rights come from? Like, where do you think your right to, I don't know, leftists don't even care about property rights, do they? I mean, they care about it to the extent that they want, like, free healthcare and shit. But to the extent that they think they have a right to not be killed by the government or, like, imprisoned or whatever, where do they think that right comes from? Where do they think freedom of speech comes from? Or any of their rights? Those rights originate in the idea that there is divinity in each and every human being. And because there's divinity in each and every human being, there are certain things that we protect, right? We protect your mind and your body and your life because there's a spark of the divine in each individual, and we understand that each individual has the capacity to change the world. It's so critical to the salvation, like literal salvation of our culture, that people come to understand the value of the individual and the divinity of the individual. And because of the divinity of the individual, that's where our rights and our morality comes from, and that's where our structure of government originates. It's based on the fact that we have the divine. So thank God Jordan Peterson is here to help, you know, atheists and like really fervent people who are like anti-Christian kind of at least come to understand why Christianity was so important to the foundations of our culture, and why losing it or completely disregarding it stands to cause more damage than a lot of these people might think. And similarly, Jordan B. Peterson has helped Christians a lot, and I'm a Catholic, right? But it's not just us Catholics that have been helped, although I still think that we're, just like I said with Milo, Catholics have been right about everything. But you know, he has helped we Christians be able to more properly articulate a lot of the things that we've been trying to get across for a long time without being able to do that well. For example, I did that video about how even if you're an atheist, you should try to follow the 10 Commandments because it has real life consequences. And prior to Jordan Peterson, I would have never had the courage to make a video like that. I would have thought that it never would get any traction or any interest. And I'm still a small channel, so, you know, it remains to be seen how big it gets. But, you know, it's because of him that I have the courage to do something like that. And it's helped a lot of Christians, I think, be able to speak more freely about their faith and not be ashamed of their faith either. Because for so long, people have joked about Christians as if we're crazy, or as if we are just stupid, or as if we don't care about science or any of that. And it's just not true. And Jordan B. Peterson has given a lot of us the courage to speak openly about our morality and the reasons why we believe in it. So I'm so happy that he's been here in our lives to do that. And, you know, that kind of piggybacks into my second point, which is that in addition to revitalizing our ethics and morality, Jordan Peterson has literally strengthened and made more courageous hundreds of thousands of people. And just think about, every person has the possibility and the potential to change the world around them for the better. I mean, look at people like Gandhi, people like MLK, people like Thomas Jefferson. The power of the individual to change the world and to help the whole society get on the right track is immense. So I cannot restate enough how important every single individual is to our society. And the more individuals who are strong and who are dedicated to the truth and who are dedicated to making the world around them a better place, the better our society is going to be. And I think that interview with Kathy Newman is going to be such a flashpoint in terms of our cultural war, and it already is. I mean, it's clear that it is, because what that illustrated is that Jordan Peterson cares about the individual, and these leftists don't. Jordan Peterson cares about logic, about truth, and about elevating the individual to their best self. And all of these neo-Marxist leftists, you know, postmodernist types who want to just destroy Western civilization, it's like what they're trying to destroy is the individual. That's what they want to destroy. That's why they're so obsessed with these group identities, because you're not an individual, you're a black person, right? Or for me, I'm mulatto, right? I'm a woman. You know, I'm part Native American. I'm, like, I guess a Catholic, because they want to try to say that Christianity is a privilege now or some shit. I don't know, it's crazy. But I digress. Jordan Peterson has strengthened hundreds of thousands of individuals, and we have no idea what kind of impact that's going to have on the world. I mean, every single one of those people has the power to change the world in and of themselves. And to have that many people capable of changing the world because of his influence, I mean, you know, if God is good, and if, you know, the world kind of turns out the way that I hope it will in one way or the other, because I do think that ultimately the world is progressing forward, I think that we will owe immense gratitude for Jordan Peterson, because he is he's going to be personally, I think he'll be remembered as one of the greatest intellectuals of our time. But not just because he's so intelligent, but because he literally saved hundreds of thousands of individuals from the brink of destruction. I mean, I know I was on the brink, but for Jordan Peterson, I don't know if I would have had the strength to go out into, you know, my entrepreneurship and kind of try to do what I really wanted to do. And I found out that trying to do what you want to do is so much easier than trying to do what other people want you to do. And since I've done that, you know, I've already been able to help so many people in ways that I couldn't even have foreseen. And that's all because of Jordan Peterson. And I'm just one person. I'm just one person. And I have been able to totally change my life because of just following a little bit of his advice. I really believe that he's the preacher of our time, and, you know, thank God that he exists. If you liked this video, I hope you'll like and subscribe below. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.
I just want to start a flame in your heart.